some type of press is absolutely useless for your O-1A or your EB-1A application. Not every article is useful, and actually in some cases you want to leave it completely out of the petition. So how do you think about this?
So USCIS has specific requirements when it comes to press. Yes, are they archaic? Yes, they are. But we have to we have to satisfy their requirements. For example, each article needs to have an author.
Listed,
written, basically who wrote the article, or it could be two people. It needs to have the date when the article was published, and it needs to have a title. So what happens nowadays is often we have this beautiful written article about you and your work in places like Forbes or Washington Post or New York Times, and then we all get excited, and then until we see that there's no author. Instead of the name of the author, the magazine or the newspaper will put like something like, I've seen editorial desk, editors, or something similar. Unfortunately, that's not going to work for your O1 or EB1 just because of that. So in these cases, what we do or could do is you can contact the publisher, the magazine, or the newspaper and ask them to add the author or authors. If they don't want to or they cannot, then perhaps getting a letter from the journalist or the author of that article stating that they wrote that article. It's not ideal, but if it's really a great article in great publication, we do want to use it, but we have to have the proper evidence.
Okay. What about the media outlet? Like, how do you define when something is good for major media or trade publications?
So the first thing I usually do is look at the views, how many views they have. Generally, I want to see at least 700,000 views a month. If the publication is in the United States. Now, if it's a publication in a smaller country, let's say the country is 6 million people, we can, the views can be, 100,000, maybe sometimes even 50,000, depending on the country, the population, and whether that's like, top 10, media or newspaper in that particular country.
Okay. And just to clarify, articles outside of the US, articles inside of the US are both perfectly fine?
Yeah, they're both perfectly fine as long as, we meet those requirements, we meet the definition for major media. Also, sometimes I've used the media kit for that publication. Sometimes USCIS will push back on it for various reasons, but we could use that as just a secondary evidence. First we have the stats for the views, how many views that magazine or newspaper has, and then we have the media kit, and maybe sometimes even information online that we can find about that magazine from a reputable source.
Got it. Finally, what about the topic of the article? What about if I'm quoted, or if there's, they're talking about me and, 3 other entrepreneurs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if you're quoted or there are 3 other people in that article, that's not article about you according to USCIS. These types of articles help for the final merits, for the overall, to show to showcase your expertise. However, it doesn't really satisfy the criteria for media. Generally, we encourage that article about you is at least 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs. It's mostly about you. There are no other people in there. If you have 5 people or 10 people, that's not going to be article about you. So we cannot use it for that criteria. It doesn't matter how great the source is.
Excellent. So now you know, not every press article is great for your petition, so choose carefully.